HUD just kicked the door off 2 regulations in 24 hours. Cross Country and UWM are throwing punches over 2 harbors. KW and Elliman both reshuffled the C-suite, while ROA planted a flag in Tennessee. And the spring market is pretending the rate sheet is just fine. Pull up a chair. This is My Real Estate Show Unfiltered. Alrighty. And then it took away my introduction. So now I just don't know who I am.
Some random person doing a podcast.
I am Sandi Lyn Burnett. I am CEO of a brokerage that I scaled 7 states in 7 months. And I did this because I'm tired of seeing agents get, screwed over by just the industry and the status quo. I think we can build something bigger as a whole, and I think we can do that together, and that's part of what this show's about. Josh?
I'm Josh. I am the co-host of this show. I'm an Inman contributor, a lead generation consultant, a managing broker, and I met Sandi Lyn because her business partner threatened to burn my house down.
And we are joined by producer Brian. I served with Brian 20 years ago or more in the Marine Corps. And now he produces our podcast. Like, wow, it's crazy how time flies, right? So let's get right into it. Topic number 1 is the HUD double rollback, crime school steering guidance out. Okay, so HUD Assistant Secretary Craig Trainor sent an open letter on April 28th declaring that real estate agents do not violate the Fair Housing Act simply by discussing crime stats or school quality with clients. This is walking back years of NAR guidance that told agents to redirect those questions to third-party tools or talk to your local fucking police department and shit. Like a police department. Could you imagine, by the way, if all of our clients just actually went to the fucking police department like we were instructed to tell them to go do? Like, okay, Josh has a past career in law enforcement, so now I'm really interested in this. Josh, if a whole bunch of people are like, my agent, Sandi Lyn Burnett, told me to come in and ask you guys about the neighborhood of XYZ Main Street, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so first of all, I have 2 thoughts. Yes, I was in law enforcement for 10 years as a patrol deputy, and I would occasionally get calls from people that would call like non-emergency and request a phone call because their agent had told them, hey, I can't talk about the crime stats in this area. So, but if you call the police department, they'll be able to help you. So we would get calls occasionally where we'd call people and they'd be like, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in this neighborhood. My agent told me he can't talk about it, but told me to call you guys. So it does happen. The funny side to that story is as soon as I became a licensed agent at the brokerage I was at, then I started having our agents, they would call me and be like, hey, will you talk to my client as a cop and tell him about stuff? So it does happen, but I'm excited for this news. I've always thought, I'm a firm believer that you need to stay in your lane. But to me, if you're up on the crime stats and you are actually, to me, it's no different than market stats. You know, as long as you're aware, you're not just making stuff up, and you can go back to sources that you're using for these things if you ever need to. I don't understand why it was always such a problem, personally.
I never did either. I thought it was a ton of the value that agents could supply. I think they were tying our hands behind our backs. I get it. There is a difference between being like, saying some terrible things and making it about race or something else, right? But crime is fucking crime. What's the chances that my kid can play outside and, get shot? Like, I think that's a reasonable question to ask. Like, Is the crime higher over here? What are the schools like? That is a very reasonable question to ask,
Yeah.
And so how I would always handle it, whether this is legal or not, or whether this is right or not, I would say Sandi Burnett, the realtor, can't answer that question. But here's what Sandi Burnett does. Like, here's where I live. Here's where my daughter goes to school. Here's why this works for me. I can tell you that stuff. I could also tell you as a friend, I wouldn't live here. I would not buy this house. And you know what? If somebody wants to throw me into jail over that, I guess they're going to throw me into jail over that. But if my clients ask me a question, especially military clients that are moving here, they've never been here, and all they're like is, oh, I heard you're just not supposed to live south of Locust. And this is what is traveling through their military network. They're telling each other, hey, here's where you don't want to buy. Here's where you're going to get shot. Like, this shit actually exists. This shit is happening. So why aren't we allowed to help our clients?
Yeah. I always kind of took it as one of those things too, that NAR started throwing out these things as a way to deflect the ability or the need to train agents. Like, that was kind of the way, because in my opinion, if you're keeping up on your stats, like I would say, if you have a source for your crime stats, how is that any different than your market stats? And as long as you're not just pulling information out of nowhere to give to your clients and making stuff up. And the other part of it is understanding there's a difference between facts and opinions. But I see this as NAR just said, you know what, years ago, if we just tell them not to talk about it, then we don't have to train them on how to talk about it the correct way. And I think there's a lot of that in real estate where, there's a lot of confusion on laws and guidelines. And a lot of agents even think that a lot of NAR rules are laws. That's not true. But it's just a lack of training. And I think, NAR was like, well, if we just don't tell them not to talk about it at all, that's one less training course we got to put out there.
Honestly, I think that's a great point. I also think that politically, NAR is woke on that side of things. And in the woke culture, you're so afraid of saying the wrong thing. You're so afraid of offending the wrong person that you just shut down and you don't talk about it at all. It's the type of thing we don't talk about, Josh. We don't talk about this at the dinner table, and that's fucking ridiculous. Like, this, we're talking about where somebody is going to live, where they're going to raise their family, where they're going to invest their money into their biggest asset, usually in their entire life. And I just think that I'm just very happy to see this whole thing overturned. I do want to say, if you are somebody out there that's extremely upset to see this information, and you have very strong feelings on it, we'd love to have you on the show. We'd love to hear your perspective on this, because I know my thoughts and feelings on it. I kind of know where Josh is coming from. I kind of know where producer Brian is coming from, but I would love to hear it from the other side. I can only guess as to why, some people might be upset about it, but, I don't want this to be some group think type show. We want to hear from everybody's perspectives, because we all run our business as real estate agents differently, each one of us. And so if they can learn from you, and if you want a platform to tell them your thoughts and your perspective, DM us.
Was there anything in the article about how many violations that they've seen or anything? I'd be curious to know, because in my opinion, this falls in the category of you can make all the rules you want, but there were agents out there that were still going against it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I kind of was in all actuality. I totally could have gotten in trouble for the way that I operated my business. And I don't regret it for a second. Like, I did it based on my own morals and ethics and how I wish I would be treated as a consumer, relying on my agent for their expertise. So yeah, that's also why I didn't work with cold leads. I didn't work with anybody that wasn't a direct referral to me, because my clients knew how I operated. If you ask me a question, I will tell you whatever the answer is that I think I should tell you, not what you want to hear and not what is going to check a pretty little box over here. I do what I feel is right for my
Yeah.
client. But this does say HUD Secretary Scott Turner called the prior posture an effort to push DEI ideology and said it created perceived liability for agents, which we would agree on. The same day, HUD also rescinded the Biden-era energy efficiency standard for new FHA and USDA construction loans, which builders said added thousands per home and effectively locked some buyers out of new construction. NAR responded that it is carefully reviewing the fair housing letter. Okay, NAR. Like, I've had just about enough of their non-committal fucking verbiage, you know?
Right. Talk about not wanting to take one side or the other.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll just keep you posted as we learn more.
Yeah.
That's like every fucking influencer's favorite thing to say. Apparently NAR's favorite thing to say. So two entirely different but huge real estate policy moves in one day, and both of them pointed in the same direction, which I'm all for, which is looser federal oversight on what agents can say and then what builders have to spend and therefore pass on to the consumer. Combine that with last week's HUD posture changes, and we're seeing a clear pattern here. The risk is not the rules. The risk is the next plaintiff's lawyer who read intent matters and tries to name on the gray zone. So, or make a name for themselves on this gray zone. Like, that's what these attorneys are like. They're sniffing around, they're circling like sharks in the water. I can already tell. So, it's really funny, like what I'm reading here. I have something set up to where it tells me like, oh, here's Sandi's hot take. And sometimes I agree with it and sometimes I don't. So it's really funny as I read through this, whether I'm going to I'm like, oh, I wonder what it thinks my hot take is. Because yesterday I completely disagreed with whatever it told me that my take should be. Well, it says verbatim, here's what it says. Hot take, Sandi. Agents have been spending 5 years being told to keep their mouths shut and hand the buyer a niche.com link. HUD just said you can answer the question. Good. Buyers are adults and we are licensed professionals. At my real estate company, the standard is the same as it always has been. Stick to verifiable data, document the source, and never let your opinion stand in for a fact. Looser federal language does not loosen your fiduciary duty. The agents who get sued next year will be the ones who heard you can talk about crime and forgot the second half of the sentence.
Yeah, I think this whole thing is, this is not the government's job to regulate. And at the end of the day, if everyone just acts ethically, this would be a non-issue. Like, that's the thing to me that's so crazy, is we're creating all these laws and now we're taking them away, which I think is great. But at the end of the day, like, regulation should fall on your brokerage and yourself. Like, this, to me, it's a self-correcting problem. If you're walking around treating people like this, you're not going to have much business down the road anyways.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk about some of the other stuff that's happening in real estate, but let's talk about what companies are up to, okay? So Keller Williams named Christopher Brodhead, now I have to look that one up, as Chief Revenue Officer on April 28th. This very same day, Douglas Elliman tapped Lena Johnson, formerly of one Sotheby's. Now, you should know how to pronounce this, but what is it, Sotheby's or Sotheby's?
I think it's Sotheby's.
You just said it both ways. Craig. Sotheby's. Anyway, as national brokerage president of Douglas Elliman. On April 29th, Real Estate News reported LPT Realty and Coldwell Banker each picked up new teams, like big teams, and Realty, it says Realty One of America, but I know it's Realty of America, entered Tennessee. So they just opened in Tennessee. Tennessee is also on our short list as well. Anywhere CEO Sue, not even going to try her last name, told the Gathering audience the same week that scale is becoming a superpower for brokerages. Well, that's cool. That's good to know that we're on the right track. So when the established brokerages reshuffle revenue and operations leadership in the same news cycle, obviously we're talking, it's rarely about culture. It's about the recruiting math no longer working without a new playbook. So basically, it's interesting that they say this. Tennessee is the move that should perk up agents in red-leaning growth states. ROA is following the same migration corridor we watched the agent base flood into for the last 3 years. I'm not even going to read what hot take it wants me to take on this because I have some pretty strong opinions. My first strong opinion being that Realty of America, I love the name of this brokerage. But what's interesting and what I've learned, and I've met with some very, high level executives at Realty of America, it's no secret that it's very highly populated with the Latino population. And so I find it very interesting that, AI, for instance, would say, oh, it should perk up agents in red-leaning growth states. And it's like, well, I am red-leaning. I definitely want to grow in those states. And I'm interested to see what kind of growth that they have. I have no doubt that they'll grow. They are one of the fastest growing brokerages. They have 3,000 agents in 18 months. Since they became a brokerage, they have picked up 3,000 agents, which that's no easy feat. But it was this brokerage was formed by two different dudes with very highly successful independent brokerages in two completely different areas. One of them Chicago, one of them Texas. So I don't think that red has anything to do with this move. And I don't think red's going to have anything to do with who joins this Realty of America. I think it's just going to be Realty of America. They shouldn't be afraid to lean into their niche. When I met with one of the agents, I straight up asked him, like, hey, this is what I've heard. Is it true? And he's like, well, I mean, we picked up a Caucasian team like last week. And I'm like, if you have to say that it's like a special thing that you just did, then it is true, but like lean into it. I took a stand, and everybody, that's not saying that nobody's welcome at your brokerage. Like everybody's welcome at your brokerage. Everybody is welcome at our brokerage. We just happen to be a non-brokerage. We just happen to, like, a lot of our agents happen to lean right, but everybody's welcome. There's some interesting things there.
But I also think that that's part of that too, is taking a stand and making a decision, and then owning it. And I think there's a lot of, on both sides of it, the owning it part doesn't really happen on the right and the left a lot of the time.
People want to know where they stand with you. And I think that's what my little rant was yesterday, and a mini rant about it today, is have a backbone, decide who you are as a person, and then own it. Like you just said, own it. I think that I just don't understand why everybody's, don't get me wrong, I do understand why everybody's so afraid to have a backbone, and that's because you get, canceled, that whole cancel culture and shit when that was super alive. And it's hilarious when we look at things, the things that people were canceled over several years ago is now like nobody would bat an eyelash at it. And they're all like, yeah, that was ridiculous. And so it's very interesting to see, I guess, America finding its way through social media. I remember I wish I could think of his name off the top of my head, but there was a guy that raised a whole bunch of money for the Iowa City Children's Hospital. I mean, we're talking like 5 to 6 figures worth of, 5 to 6 figures worth of money for this Iowa City Children's Hospital. And the Iowa City Children's Hospital is very, very near and dear to like everybody in Iowa and the University of Iowa's hearts. Like the University of Iowa football game, we all like wave to the Children's Hospital. Like it's a whole thing, right? So this guy, and then Busch Light, like also he partnered with Busch Light to like raise even more money for the Iowa City Children's Hospital. And then out of nowhere, some people dug, Carson King, thank you, Brian. Some people dug through his Twitter from like 10 years ago where he made like some racist comment or something. And they tried to destroy this man from a 10-year ago Twitter comment. Never mind all the work that he just did, raising money for the Iowa City Children's Hospital, bringing all kinds of people together. Let's just fucking destroy this man over whatever the fuck the comment was. I don't remember. I'm not defending the comment. I don't even know what it was, because I don't have that kind of time on my hands to go try and destroy somebody that's doing good for America and doing good for society. But what I absolutely love is that whoever tried to do that, it completely backfired on them. Everybody rallied around Carson King, and they were like, how dare you? How dare you? This shit is over with. This whole scrubbing people's old social media before they were who they are now. Like, we all have a digital footprint. We all have one now. I mean, I'm sure this is not going to age well, whatever. I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff out there that is not going to paint me in a good light because I was in a different mood that day, or I've grown since then as a person. And we all have this digital footprint now, if we're a Gen Xer or a millennial that grew up on all of this. And so Brian, he posted in the chat, you've learned, Brian, you have to say what it is, because you tell the story better.
All right, so what was this, like 2008 or 9? The Facebook games had Mafia Wars, one of the browser games you could play.
There's still never been another better game.
Yeah, so
it was awesome.
Yeah, and basically, like, you start out in New York, and like the missions are to do blah 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 blah, and then like a year after the game comes out, they're like, oh, we're adding this other portion where now you go down to Colombia, and like you can do like stuff down there, and like you start manufacturing warehouses, doing this other stuff. And one of the things that you could like expand or buy or whatever was coca. And Sandy messages me and she's like, wow, like it's really funny that this huge game misspelled cocoa. And I'm like, no, Sandy, coca is what is made into cocaine, which makes sense for Colombia and mafia wars and drugs, not chocolate cocoa.
She thought she was slinging cocoa.
Yep. Just selling Hershey's bars down in Colombia. Girl Scout cookies.
And here I am, like, thinking I'm so great. And what a dumb game. Like, what a dumb mistake for this huge game to make.
Well, but that brings up a good point, because how many good people played that game? Like, there were so many, hundreds of thousands of people played that game. And, that's the type of stuff, like, society changes, we all get older, you've got to give people grace on what they did 20 years ago. Come on. Yeah.
And, yeah, speaking of that game, I still have some Facebook friends that I, like, met through that game. It's so funny. We'll, like, comment on each other's stuff every now and then, and I still remember, like, I met you because you, like, I've never met him, but he destroyed me in Mafia Wars, and I respected it, so I, like, friended him.
Those were Mafia friends.
Oh, God. So, yeah, I think that I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying having my finger on the pulse and seeing, I'm rooting for these other brokerages as they're growing. I'm rooting for these underdogs. I'm loving it, right? So it's just been a really neat thing to see, and good luck to Realty of America good luck to Simply Home. We're going to have the CEO of Simply Home on here at some point. He's got like 15 to 1800 agents. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. We'll talk about one more topic and then we'll wrap it up. So let's talk about, I guess there's some more brokerage news here. We might as well get into this. Real estate news reported on April 28th that Compass and United Real Estate filed motions to settle in the Tikori commission case with the deals subject to court approval. So I wasn't even aware of this Tikori commissions case. Weichert is pushing for a stay while it negotiates separately. In a parallel front, Compass filed a motion to dismiss certain counterclaims brought by the Northwest MLS. And Bess Friedman published a Housing Wire op-ed last week calling out the facts around private listing networks. I would love to read that one, actually. Riz Media separately reported that Compass says state private listing bans do not bar its marketing strategy. So I'm actually also interested in reading more about that. So the Tikori settlements close one chapter of the post-NAR litigation cycle, but the private listing fight is ramping up in court. I really don't see anybody that's trying to control the information win. That's my prediction is that, information is going to flow more and more and more freely. And I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. It's up to us as agents, again, now that we've got a little bit of our backbone and a little bit of our value back by being able to at least report to them actual facts and crime statistics and shit. I see things reversing for the better, but we still have a lot of work to do as far as educating consumers. Consumers don't, and it should have been NAR's job to educate consumers, but they don't. I don't know what they do with our money besides give it to attorneys and then stay rich. But I honestly, as far as I'm concerned, consumers still think that our job is to find you your perfect house. It's not to find you your perfect house. You have access to almost the same amount of information that I do, unless I can have these private listing networks and bring back some more of my value to you. You can't blame me that you found your own fucking house with the same, you're the one obsessing over finding a house and your perfect house. And you always find a house that's outside the criteria that you told me you wanted to be in anyway, so it's up to you to put in your due diligence, looking through the internet. I have access to Zillow.com, Realtor.com, just like you do. So it's up to you to put in your due diligence. Which houses do you want to see? It's up to me to make sure that I negotiate the very best deal for you, that I make sure that I get you whatever house that you want, that I make sure I keep you out of lawsuits, that I make sure, all these different things, right? Make sure that, I'm negotiating a good house for you to have. So I wish that NAR would have spent more time educating consumers on stuff like that instead of here's how to pronounce the fucking word realtor, or, spending all their money on attorneys for dumb shit that we shouldn't even have gotten ourselves in hot water in the first place.
Don't forget the office remodel. The office remodel, that was highly important.
Yep. And don't forget when they sold out on Realtor.com.
Oh yeah,
where'd all that money go?
That was a good investment right there.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think NAR should continuously be losing its power because it fucked up and it didn't hold up its end of the bargain for the agents. There are a lot of things that NAR started off on, as all good intentions, right? path of good intention, the road of good intentions is paved to hell. Is that how it says? Is that where?
Something like that.
Yeah. And so I think the people that started NAR, and the people that invented NAR, and the people that have the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Thank you,
There it
Brian.
is.
My goodness. The people that created NAR, and then NAR for a while had a really good thing going. Everybody rallied behind it. And then it got a big head. It wanted to act like a mafia and keep agents under its thumb, and felt like they didn't have to be held accountable to the very people that were responsible for funding them. So they've done a lot of good, and they've made a lot of terrible mistakes, and we'll see how things shake out. What are your thoughts, Josh?
I would tend to agree. I think NAR is going to lose. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see competing entities that come up and will kind of level the playing field with NAR, which I think will give more agents options, which I think will be a great thing, because then those other entities in NAR will have to compete for members, which the way you have to do that is provide more value than your competitor. And so I think we're headed in the right direction. I think NAR started out trying with the best intentions in the world, but I thought at some point they deviated and they lost sight of who were they serving, you know? And I think for agents, the takeaway from that is the same thing can happen to you and your business. You know, I don't know how many young agents I've seen that hit a little bit of success right out of the gate and pretty quickly forget who they serve. And it absolutely tanks their business. And so I think, the takeaway that agents can have to this is don't be like NAR. Don't let your ego get to you. Don't don't forget who you serve. And more importantly, focus on your clients and not just how do we make the most money possible.
Amen. All right, let's close this out. HUD open the door. The brokerages are reshuffling the deck. And your client still needs to know if today is the day to write an offer. So that is our show. If you want a show or training that tells you the truth about every one of these stories, not just the polished version, not just the we're going to wait and see until we learn more version, you know where to find us. We're all about standards, ownership, and accountability. So we'll see you at the same time tomorrow. Unfiltered.
See you guys tomorrow.